The aspirations of today's average Indian have grown. Their incomes have definitely risen. We are seeing more and more of 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom supply coming into the market, and less of affordable housing coming into the market. Now, the question, still we are a country with a lot of low middle income population as that demand for housing. So that's for a country as a whole a challenge. The aspirational middle classes demand for housing have taken over the other segments. Last 3 years there has been a sharp increase in prices. But as far as pricing is concerned, my view is that the correction that was to happen has happened to a large extent. Real estate has given returns in the range of 15 to 20% per annum. We are already seeing some early signs of stabilization, particularly in the NCR region. But having said that, prices are not going to come off 2 degrees as compared to the outside environment. It's about bringing down the energy intensity. We have to do our developments in such a manner that we are able to maximize light and ventilation. People who live in well ventilated homes are less susceptible to infection. People are looking for I think going forward, from a cost perspective, from availability of talent perspective, these tier 2 tier 3 cities.
Hi, welcome to Urban Insights. I'm Jayashree Kuru. I have with me Mr. Nagaraju Routhu. He is the CEO of Experion Developers. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Nagaraju, we have had a pretty bull run of the real estate industry from, say, 2021 through to 2024, and it's continuing. What do you think were the major trends of 2024 that will drive 2025? And also, if you could talk about, do you think this bull run is going to continue, or do you see it stabilizing a little bit, moderating a little bit? Just trends of 2024 through to 2025.
Let me take you back a decade. So sometime in 2013, the market took a downturn, and it remained sluggish for an extended period of almost 7 to 8 years. It's only post COVID in later part of 21, early 22, when market started picking up, and over the last 3 years, the market really picked up in a big way. This could be because of the pent up demand that got created during previous 7 8 years when the market was sluggish, and also could be due to the experience that people had to go through during COVID, in particular, when people were confined to their homes and they all felt the need to have bigger, better homes. So we and also in the luxury segment, a lot of people, even though they were living in bigger homes, better homes, but they felt the need to they realized the value of life, I would say. They felt the need to enjoy life, so the demand for holiday homes and other kinds of recreational products also started picking up post COVID. So last 3 years, I would attribute the growth somewhat to the pent up demand during the previous 7 8 years. And then structurally also, if you see where we are today as a country, demographics of our country, the aspirational middle class that we have, that is also leading to strong demand for housing in the country. One of the interesting things which we noticed over the last 3 years is premiumization, and this is something initially people thought that it is could be because of the COVID experience. People wanted bigger house for themselves, maybe a house in which they can also have a home office or something like that. But the fact that it's sustained throughout this 3 year period and is still continuing goes to show that it is, I think, not just the COVID experience maybe that would have triggered it, but it is something beyond that. So maybe the aspirations of today's average Indian have grown. Their incomes have definitely risen. They are far more exposed to the trends globally. So their aspirations seem to have gone up, and now they are looking at things which they feel would be in keeping with their aspirational lifestyle. So we are seeing more and more of 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom supply coming into the market, and less of affordable housing coming into the market. Now, the question is whether this is the right thing for our country as a whole. I'm not so sure, because all said and done, still we are a country with a lot of low middle income population. So if we do not cater to the housing needs of that segment, and if we only focus on houses that are bigger and priced higher, then someone will have to address that demand for housing. So that's for a country as a whole a challenge which we have to bear in mind and come up with the right policies to encourage development of that housing as well. There was a period when government laid a lot of focus on bringing that category of housing into the market, and that did yield results, and there was a lot of supply of affordable housing in the market. But then somewhere I think we started to lose focus on that, and the aspirational middle classes demands for housing have taken over the other segments demand for housing, and developers are increasingly catering to the segment that the aspirational middle class is looking at. So that's one. Of course, the prices have moved up, and which is well known today. For the last 3 years, there has been a sharp increase in prices. But as far as pricing is concerned, my view is that the correction that was to happen has happened to a large extent. Going forward, any increase in price that we see will be more in line with the normal increase that is expected in an economy like ours, wherein it is inflation plus delta. So it would kind of moderate to the normal levels of price increases. But our industry doesn't see linear increases in prices, so it always happens in spurts. There could be periods of stabilization, and then there could be an increase. But on a CAGR basis, I would say it would be more a normalized pace of increase that we would be witnessing going forward.
What would that be? What would be the normalized CAGR?
See, if you look at historically, long period data, real estate has given returns in the range of 15 to 20% per annum. So while the price increase in the last 3 years has been quite sharp, but that will get normalized, and your average increase over long period will return to that 10 to 20% per annum kind of range. So in some periods, like last couple of years, we have seen increases which are 40-50% per annum, but that may not continue. We are already seeing some early signs of stabilization, particularly in the NCR region. But having said that, prices are not going to come off. That is not certainly the reading, at least my reading of the market. The prices will stabilize and continue to grow at a normal pace.
Other than size and price, were there any other trends that were visible in the last couple 2 3 years in terms of green? Climate has been a big factor in our lives. So are consumers responding to that as
See, if you look at real estate, it has multiple segments. Home buyer, while we as developers are very particular about developing a green building, we like at Experion, for example, all our buildings, all our developments are green rated, either Gruha or LEED. One of those agencies, we do go for a green rating, and we ensure that it is of a certain standard and it is environment friendly. So that's our corporate policy, and we do it across all our developments. But when you look at it from a home buyer's perspective, it doesn't rank very high in the criteria, selection criteria, while choosing a home for himself or herself. Maybe with passage of time it will rise in importance. But as of now, while we as developers, we do in our literature the marketing collaterals and brochures, etc., we do talk about it of developing a green building. But when a customer is evaluating different projects, it is not at the level at which it should be as of now. So still, the other considerations in terms of the pricing, the efficiency of the layout, the location, those rank much higher than whether a development is environment friendly or not. But if you look at the other segment, the office segment, it ranks very high. Because there the clientele is completely different. They are mostly corporates who have their own policies to promote environment friendly developments. So as a corporate policy, they prefer to operate out of spaces that are environment friendly. So they are very particular about a building being a platinum rated building or a gold rated building. So they're very particular about green buildings. So if someone is looking to develop a grade A office space to lease to these clients, it's imperative that you do a green building. Otherwise, it could become a challenge, leasing that space, because that's a preference of the clients, because it's part of their corporate policy globally. So two different segments operate in completely two different ways when it comes to the customer's perspective. But as a developer, we don't make that distinction, be it residential, be it commercial. We Because we have our own corporate policy to do environment friendly development, so we do across the board environment friendly developments and get these buildings rated by different agencies.
Is green simply a change in what you're doing, or does it have tangible economic benefits at the end of
See, you have to then go back to the basic definition of what is green, what constitutes green, because it's a term which a lot of people use without really understanding the meaning of what constitutes green. Certainly, these buildings are not
Yeah,
painted green. It's all about the energy intensity. So when we say environment friendly, what are we saying? We are
yeah.
saying that the energy intensity of that particular building, we are trying to reduce to the extent feasible. Now, how do you do that? You do that by being as environment friendly but as possible in terms of whatever you do, basically being as close to nature
Mhm,
as possible. If you are able to do a
mhm,
development which is kind of in harmony with the principles of nature, it's a least energy intensive building. So, like for example, if you're talking
mhm.
about air conditioning, I'm just
Right.
taking an example. One is you use highly intensive
Mhm,
energy intensive machinery and control the environment inside the office buildings, and provide air conditioning. The other way of achieving it is you try to create a climate friendly overall environment within the complex, where the average temperature within the complex itself comes down by a few degrees as compared to the outside environment. This you can achieve through plantation of the right kind of trees and water bodies and various other things which horticulturists are
mhm,
experts at doing. If you make a conscious decision to take that route,
mhm,
then you design the whole complex in a manner where you are making provisioning for all these natural features, so that the overall temperature within the complex is actually a couple of degrees lower as compared to the outside environment, and that reduces the load on the overall air conditioning. So you might not actually require high load machines to provide the right working environment for the people working in those buildings or living in those buildings. So it's about bringing down the
mhm.
energy intensity.
What about building health? After COVID, for a period of time, there was intense focus on using data to measure what is the building health, what is the internal environment, is it suitable for the people around, and so on. Now you've got intensely hot summers, you've got extremely rainy monsoons, and you've got extremely cold winters. So you're actually seeing extremes of climate. So does your consumer look for buildings that are responsive to the climate as well, or no? Not yet.
No, certainly. I mean, when one's looking at buying a house or taking office space on leasing, comfort factor is certainly a factor. One looks for a lot of customers, particularly if you go to southern part of India, who are very particular about Vastu. There are many Vastu consultants who advise developers on how to, plan the layouts, etc., to be Vastu compliant, because the end consumers are highly Vastu compliant. But
Yeah.
if you actually get to the nuts and bolts of vastu, what is it? It's not about placing this here, there, placing that there. It's more about ensuring proper light and ventilation within the entire development. So you position your house in a particular direction, so that because we know sun rises in the east, it sets in the west, we know the path, sun path, all that we understand. So we have to do our developments in such a manner that we are able to maximize light and ventilation, cross ventilation, getting ample natural light is very very important, and that is critical to ensuring healthy lives. As people who live in well ventilated homes are less susceptible to infection. It's a proven fact. So if you're living in a closed environment, even if that environment is air conditioned, you're more susceptible to infections, rather, I mean, as compared to those who are living in natural environment with natural light and ventilation. So while designing the buildings, one should factor in these things, and align the buildings in such a manner that you are able to maximize natural light and ventilation, which is what we do in all our developments. Our One of the key briefs to our architects is to study this whole sun movement and wind patterns, etc., in that particular location, and then plan the buildings in a manner where we are able to provide natural light to most of the apartments, if not all, and also ensure cross ventilation.
Sure.
Because that is a see when you tell a customer that it's a green building, he doesn't associate. He appreciates it, but he doesn't associate with anything beyond just appreciation. So for him, it is all about price, efficiency, location. But when you tell the same customer that it's a building which has been designed to provide you natural light and cross ventilation for most part of the year, he appreciates that. So green building, you say it's a gold rated or a platinum rated, a customer might understand, but then it doesn't go beyond that. But when you put it across in the form of actual benefits that accrue to the customer because of the way it is designed, he or she definitely appreciates that, and that becomes a factor while deciding to buy a house.
Sir, you talked about location, property being all about location. The concept of location changed when there was a lockdown. People said, "Let me stay even far away, but so long as I have a bigger home." Now, the people are working in the offices, and you can see that there is a propensity to buy closer to the workplace because of all the traffic and other problems and things like that. What is location for the current buyer, and will that remain so, or does the definition of a premium location change?
See, it's about convenience. If a buyer is working in a particular city, in a particular location, he doesn't want to waste too much of a time commuting to and fro to office. So that's factor which is still in India. We have seen large proportion of workforce return to office, but if you look at the US, it's still a challenge post COVID. Many companies have not yet been able to bring employees back to office, although many times they have attempted
Right.
to bring their workforce back to office, but they have not yet succeeded. So there's a large proportion of workforce which is still working from home in the US. In India, over a period of time, people have started coming back to offices. Still there are, particularly in the IT sector, a lot of people doing hybrid mode of working. Some part of the week they go to office, part of the week they work from home. So what this tells us is basically that people are looking for convenience, so they don't want to spend too much time commuting. They would like to utilize that time in a more productive manner. So staying closer to place of work is something ideally everyone would love to have. But unfortunately, given various considerations, it may not always be possible. So you still have to commute some distance every day, but you don't want to commute long distances. You want to keep it as short as possible. So locations which have good public transport access, which are in the vicinity of workplaces, are the preferred locations for buying a house or renting a house. Having said that, with the kind of infrastructure development that we have been witnessing over the last few years in India, commuting times, although the distance might actually be the same, but the commuting times have shrunk. Now I'll just give you an example. There is this Delhi Meerut Express. So the distance is about 60 kilometers, but the commuting time is only about an hour. Somebody living in Gurgaon, if he has to go to Noida, it will take him 2 hours probably to get to Noida. Well, the distance is only about 30 kilometers. But somebody who is living in Meerut can reach Noida in about 45 minutes, though the distance is 60 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
So this opens up an opportunity for people to actually move out to places from where they can commute in less time as compared to places within the city. So public transport, development of expressways, development of highways is opening up these possibilities where people can actually stay in places which are distance wise though a bit far, but still can reach their places of work in shorter time. So at the end of the day, and it's all about convenience.
So, as a developer, has your perspective change when you look at locations to build in?
Yeah, certainly. We continuously, when we are looking to acquire new projects, this is one of the key factors which we keep in mind. Which are those locations which our customers would be preferring, given the infrastructure developments that are taking place, and then we look for land parcels in those locations, because ultimately we have to sell our product to the customers, and those are the locations which would be preferred by the customers.
Has the profile of your customers changed? What is the age group? What is the demographic?
See, it varies from project to project. Now, in
Mm,
a project which is more bordering on luxury or higher categories, the age profile, if you look at, is mostly in the 40 to 50 range. 40,
mm,
50. It's maybe middle age. But when you look at products that are priced lower, we have
mm,
projects in, for example, Lucknow. We have projects in Amritsar,
mm,
where there are entry level products available, and for those products the age profile is lower. It's 30 to 40, kind of age profile. So for higher ticket size luxury developments, where customers are actually upgrading probably from their previous home to a new one,
mm.
the age is somewhat on the higher side, but the entry level products, it starts around 30 thereabouts, and they're mostly in the 30 to 40 age bracket.
What percentage of your buyers are end consumers who want end users, or and what percentage are buying, say, the second home, third home, and so on?
See, and customers, if you look at our older projects which are completed now, over the last couple of years, whatever we have sold in those projects, they are mostly to end customers, because they are ready to move in. People bought a property, took a home loan, within paid us within 3 to 6 months max, and took possession of their, and moved in a couple of months, a few months after that, after getting the interior work done. So what we witnessed in those projects is mostly end customers. But new projects which are just taking off, or where the construction has just commenced, early stages of the project, we are seeing, because of the way the prices have risen over the last 3 years, investors returning to the market and being active in those projects. But these investors obviously will, at some point in time over the development cycle of the project, over the next 2 3 4 years, they will look to exit, and eventually the product will pass on to the end customers by the time it gets completed.
Mhm.
But in some of these early stage projects, we did see investors participating actively, particularly because of the way the market behaved over the last 2 3 years, giving attractive returns to investors in real estate.
One of my guests on this podcast said that PropTech today is where FinTech was, say, 5 years ago. PropTech is the next kid on the block. There's going to be a lot of uh, changes happening in the real estate industry through PropTech. What do you think?
It is inevitable. It is inevitable. We will be moving more and more towards adoption of technology across the entire value chain, right from design to, like, when it comes to design, we will see adoption of, for example, BIM, which has been around for many years. It's not a new technology, but adoption of BIM will increase during the design phases. I'm just giving it as an example. There could
Yeah.
be other things as well during the launch, sales and marketing of the project. You will see technology again coming in. Tools like VR, AR are going to become more commonplace. Already we have seen this being adopted in some projects, but the pace of adoption will increase more and more. Projects will provide tools for customers to view the entire project sitting remotely at their place of work or home, wherever they are, and have an interaction with the sales force. So a lot of work a customer can do much before actually visiting the site, visiting the sales office, and closing the transaction. I'm still of the view that, given the nature of the product, real estate, the closures may still not happen online. I think that is a bit far. Maybe in future it might happen, but My view is the all the information gathering, evaluation of projects, and a lot of work which customers go through during their buying cycle. They will be able to do it remotely and interact with the sales team, with the company executives remotely, and then just before the closure, they might actually visit those shortlisted projects and take the final decision purchase. So that's so you will see technology being adopted in that part of the value chain. Then when it comes to construction, there is enormous scope for adoption of technology. We have seen aluminum formwork, which was considered novel a few years ago, is now becoming very common. But it won't end there. You will see a lot of data driven decisions being taken during the construction. So you will see adoption of sensors, cameras, etc., to gather data with regard to the quality of construction taking place, and then use that data to predict if there is something that needs to be corrected, so that at the end of the day you are able to save on time and also give a quality product to your customer. So those tools are going to be adopted go forward in a big way. And then when it comes to maintenance as well of the completed buildings, you will see technology being adopted. So across the entire value chain, technology is going to make a big difference going forward. It's inevitable. So if you are not keeping pace with the technology adoption, then you will fall by the wayside. So that's the only way that one can actually survive going forward. It's that critical.
Are policies conducive now, or you still think there are some policies that need to be corrected to put the industry in place?
It's a work in progress. So we keep going back to the authorities with various requests from time to time, that this needs improvement, this needs improvement.
So tell me two, three policies that you think will, the industry is on an upswing. So where do you think, what are the policies you think will are needed at this point?
So my objective, or as an industry, our objective is to give our customers a good quality product, at the right price. To be able to achieve that, particularly on the pricing front, we have to ensure that whatever inefficiencies there are in the value chain, those are taken out. So I mean, in manufacturing, for example, it called, the Japanese Toyota production system, was quite talked about for many many years. So what is it all about? It's all about removing waste, removing inefficiencies from the system, and making products of a very high quality at a very competitive cost. Now, if in real estate sector we have to achieve that, that's again the same principle that we need to apply to the real estate sector. Now, when you look at the value chain of real estate, there are a lot of things which are beyond the control of the developers. Now, for example, the approval process. That's not in the control of the developer. Developer can apply as per the requirements of the authorities, but authorities have their own internal processes to approve the to grant various approvals. I mean, there are numerous approvals that are required for undertaking a project. Now, if governments are receptive to our requirements, they do keep making changes. One must give it to them, but there is scope there for further improvement, so that we are able to quickly take a project to the market. Now, today, from the time one acquires a parcel of land to actual launch of a project, given the whole lot of approvals that are required to be obtained, the RERA registration that needs to be got done before you actually can take a product to the market. The timelines could be anywhere in the range of 12 months to 18 months. So if you can reduce it to 6 months, let us say, I'm just giving a hypothetical figure. If you can reduce it to 6 months, it would bring down the cost for a developer significantly, and that would eventually get passed on to the buyer, because it's a
Okay.
competitive market. So
Yeah.
any benefit that would come to the developer in terms of cost reduction, it would the market forces will compel the developer to pass on the same to the buyer.
Hmm.
So ultimately, the buyer will benefit from that. Now, for that, we have to think differently, come up with newer ways of granting approvals, so that we are able to take projects faster to the market and develop
Okay.
those projects quickly. So the
Okay.
time the today for a project from start to finish is 7 8 years. So if we are able to reduce this 7 8 year time frame to maybe 4 5 years, 6 years, whatever much we are able to reduce, that will reduce the overall cost of development, and that will help the end buyers also by making the products more affordable.
If you were to look at yourself at in December 2025, what are the standouts that you see would have happened through the year? You talked about faster approvals, moving towards faster approvals. You talked about more adoption of technology. We are in an AI and machine learning world, so there may be perfection of structures and so on. So just look through your own cycle and tell us what are the two, three things that you think will be standouts when 2025 ends.
See, one of the key trends that we have been witnessing over the last few years, which actually is accelerating, is consolidation within the industry. Our industry used to be highly fragmented. Not very long ago, but then over the last few years, we have seen this trend towards consolidation, and over the last couple of years that has only accelerated. If you look at the share of the top developers, the corporate, the listed developers, even some of the bigger unlisted developers of the overall sales, it used to be in single digits a few years ago, but now has gone up to as high as maybe 30 35%. So that's a kind of consolidation that we are witnessing. It's
Yeah.
because industry is capital intensive. The real estate development is capital intensive. So only those who have strong balance sheets, only those who have access to capital at a reasonable cost, and only those developers who have gained the trust of the customers by virtue of the good work that they did over the years, they're the ones who are able to today undertake developments at scale and attract customers. So this, I think, will see I mean we will be seeing going forward into 25 and beyond as well, this trend continuing. Now, what this does to this sector is, these are the developers who are not looking at just the near term, who are not looking at doing a project and then forgetting about the future. They're not here for the short term. They are looking at a sustainable business over a long period of time, and they when they look at it from that perspective, they will be more open to making investments in technology, investments in people, various kinds of investments that may not be yielding results in the short term, but
Mhm.
may be beneficial for the sector over a medium to long term. So unless you have that kind of a horizon, you won't be willing to make those investments. A small local developer with just one or two projects may not be looking at it from that perspective. Would be more focused on just completing that project and taking up the next project after that. But developer with a longer term horizon would look at making investments which could be yielding results over a long period of time. That approach of these large developers would definitely bring about a lot of changes in the sector. Just to give you, an example, today one of the biggest challenges that we developers face is availability of skilled manpower. We need manpower of all kinds, from masons to barbenders to fitters to welders to plumbers. You need all kinds of manpower, and availability of skilled manpower is a major challenge for the industry as a whole. And unlike in manufacturing, where you have workers working in a controlled environment within the factory, in real estate construction sector, the workforce is not stable. They come from different parts of the country. They work for a certain period of time and then they go back to their native
Yeah.
places. So there's a continuous churn of workforce which keeps happening in real estate and construction sectors. Now, given that kind of a challenge, how do we ensure stable supply of skilled manpower for all our projects. That's a challenge. Now it's a challenge which one developer here or one developer there cannot address. This is a challenge which has to be addressed by the sector as a whole and by the country as a whole, in a way.
Mhm.
So somebody who has a medium longer term horizon only can think of these challenges and make the right interventions to be able to build the capacity for the sector as a whole. So those kind of things you will see happening going forward.
Will you see the return of affordable housing in 2025?
Yeah, as I said earlier during our interaction, that's something which is a necessity for the given where we are as a country, given the overall country's housing needs. But I think over the last 2 3 years post COVID, somewhere it has lost focus. But I think it will come back. Basic need which needs to be fulfilled by the country. It's our responsibility. So we can't ignore that segment as a developer or as a country. But then sometimes the focus keeps shifting, but will come back. And it can't be that there is no supply of affordable housing at all in the country and people are only doing luxury housing. No, we haven't reached that stage of our economic development. Hopefully, we will get there someday. But as of date, given where we are as a country, there is a huge need for that kind of housing.
Okay, one last question. What do you see happening in small town India? You are already developing in smaller towns, right? So what's the prognosis there? Amritsar, Ludhiana, Lucknow, Jaipur.
These cities are actually witnessing a lot of infrastructure development. I mean, country as a whole, we are seeing tremendous improvement in infrastructure. And during the COVID, what we did see is a lot of people going to their native place. Many people who were employed by the IT sector or other sectors, financial services and mostly service sector, who were working earlier in the big cities during the COVID, they did work remotely from their native place. And they realized that the quality of life is actually much better. And there is that's why reluctance to come back to the big cities and go back to office. They would ideally like to continue to work from their native places remotely and contribute, but sometimes it's not feasible also. So but that triggered this thought amongst people's mind on how we can be back at our hometown and still be able to work in different organizations the way we used to work. So what happened is, one is of course the employees insisting on remote working from their hometowns, and organizations trying to find some midway by coming up with a hybrid mode of working. But even governments, state governments for example, have come up with policies to push these corporates to set up their offices in these locations, though there was reluctance initially considering the inertia that usually is associated with such decisions. But we are seeing, like for example, I'll give you an example, places like Indore, Vishakhapatnam, you know are the companies setting up their development centers and offices and tapping the local talent pool available there, and they are positive about that. Their initial experiences of operating from those places have quite encouraging. So I would see this trend continuing. India can't be only in the top 5 7 cities. India is such a vast country, and all these other cities have to also witness the development that the bigger cities have witnessed. And there is a big opportunity, and government post COVID in particular are coming up with the right policy frameworks to encourage the companies to move there. And the development of infrastructure, the airport infrastructure for example, the Udan scheme of the government has helped many cities get air connectivities. Smaller towns, there are these ATR aircrafts flying to many smaller places. So it's not from that perspective also difficult for people to travel to these places and carry on their business. So I think going forward, from a cost perspective, from availability of talent perspective, considering the all the factors that usually corporate consider, you will see corporates setting up their offices even in these tier 2 tier 3 cities, and development opportunities for real estate developers arising in a big way in those cities as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nagaraju. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Historic moment in time in real estate. We've seen a bull run, we've seen a slight moderation. We know that there are corrections that need to happen in terms of stock, supply, and so on. Continued user interest. So we thought it's a good time to take stock of what's happening in the market.
Found this video useful? Please subscribe to this channel for more such videos. Do like and share with as many people as you can.